Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess who has the sexiest voice in triathlon. It's none other than James Bale. Jimbo, welcome back to the show.
How are you, mate? It's another week, another podcast, and I was going to say to you, I think last week we were a bit low energy, bro. We stumbled through the podcast in a kind of low energy way. Now, for me to say that to you, it means it must have been noticeable, eh?
I was talking with Joe Skipper yesterday, and he was telling me how he listened, and we were talking a bit about the Collins Cup and stuff. He's like, "You're pretty negative on that show last week, mate." And I'm like, Joe, I was like proper jet lagged. Like I think I'd landed a day before, and mate, I've been back in Australia for a week at this point, and I'm still fucking jet lagged. Like every night, come about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, like I'm sitting on the couch, dozing, and 4 or 5 a.m. every day waking up. I just think that trip, the time of it was just short enough that I ticked over to European time literally as I was leaving. It's just been an absolute, man, honestly, it's just been hideous. But you are correct. We were a bit, not necessarily, I don't think it was necessarily low energy. I think it was more just a bit negative. We were a bit negative last week.
I think we probably were, yeah.
But again, we'll pick it up this week, man. We'll pick it up. I've got something passionate to talk about this week, because I have to, as always, admit that I was wrong, because last week I was bagging out that I'm not really that interested in Super League. And I'll tell you what, mate, within about 5 minutes of that starting, I was like, oh no, Super League's fucking awesome. And I had the best time watching Super League on the weekend.
I did see that. I saw the group chat
was
going, and you were in there, and everyone was chatting. So it was good to see. It was good to see people engaging in that racing again.
Mate, hold that thought, because this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by 4-time world champion Chris McCormack. I think you've already given the answer, Jimbo, but just to make sure that I am correct, is that what you like about MX Endurance?
It is, man. I like the fact that when there's something important happening, when there's a race going on, there's a community aspect to it now, because every member that we have has the opportunity to be in the WhatsApp chat group. So people are, shooting the breeze as the race unfolds, and lots of opinions and enthusiasm kicking around. And it's always a pleasure to monitor that as it's taking place. I always put it on mute, so it's not buzzing in my pocket constantly, but I dip in and out.
Mate, that's what I do too, though. I have every notification possible set to me. One of the things I did, actually, I don't know if it's true, but I realized that by setting up this WhatsApp group that I'd inadvertently given out my phone number to like every member of MX, and I thought, that's probably not a good idea. So I went in and tried to work out if I could set it up so that like phone numbers were not displayed or something, and I hope I did it, but if you guys have my number, don't use it, please, because time zones and stuff, and it's bad enough getting. What happened a couple of weeks? I kept getting these missed calls in the middle of the night from an American number. And I was like, who the fuck in America is calling me at like 2 o'clock in the morning? And I assumed it's a scam. Anytime there's some random overseas number calling at weird hours, it's usually like an overseas scam or something like that. And so after like 3 days of it, I sent a message, and I didn't mean it to be abrupt, but I was like, hey, I don't know who this is, but you keep calling me in the middle of the night. Just like, who are you, basically? And I got an email back, and it was from one of the athletes that I work with, sponsors, being like, yeah, we've been trying to call you. I'm like, oh, whoops a daisy. maybe just email me and we'll set up a time rather than some random American number calling me in the middle of the night. But that's the joys of working on a global time frame. Speaking of, we had to work out that because you're doing an interview next week that I cannot do because the times don't match. But yeah, mate, I don't even know how we got into this topic. Oh, you're talking about the WhatsApp group. But yeah, mate. What's news, dude? We haven't spoken much the last week.
No,
so
we haven't. What's
in James
news?
Bale's
Not
world?
a huge amount. I'm flying solo at the moment because it's just me and the kids at home. I'm doing a fair amount of running and a fair amount of weightlifting, and that's about it, mate. To be honest, at the moment, how's things your end?
Is the ankle better?
It's getting there. I still feel it. I think an ankle is a journey, man. I can still feel it when I run, and it's never great. I've got it covered in anti-inflammatory cream all the time, doing loads of little band work on it and stuff. The annoying little rehab exercises you have to do when you're trying to fix something. So doing that every day. But
one of the things I've recently done is I signed up for a mobility program, because I think I'm so sick of feeling like tight and shit and unable to move properly. So I signed up for this mobility program. I'm going to do it after we finish recording. So it's 15 minutes a day. It's like a personalized program. And honestly, mate, the difference it's made to my running, Like I messaged the guy the other day. I was like, "Shit, mate! I went for a run the other day, and I actually felt like my legs were moving properly. Like I didn't feel like I was doing those little shuffles.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
felt like I had proper range of motion. It's like an actual game changer." And he was saying that, I mean, you think about it as triathletes, especially riding a TT bike or whatever, your hip flexors and everything, like your hips are pretty much a
Yeah,
nightmare.
sure.
And yeah, just doing all this stretching and stuff, it's making like I said, mate, I feel like I'm like 10 years younger. So it's
Maybe
good.
I need to go down that road because the run I did yesterday in the morning, I did a run on Tuesday and I felt great. Did a run yesterday and I, like you said, I felt like I was just an upright shuffler shuffling along. It was like there was no
Mm.
movement. It was very strange, but maybe a bit of mobility would do me some good.
I also had an FTP test this week, and I haven't. When I saw that Reese
Oof.
had put the FTP test on my program, I was like, mate, I'm buggered. Like I said, I've been struggling since I got back from Poland, but I'll toughen up and get on with it. And I don't know. I did a tweet about it because it was a journey when I was doing. I didn't tweet while I was doing it, obviously, but I actually ended up. I did my best ever FTP result, and I couldn't. I was like, shit. Considering I felt so rubbish at the start of it, I thought it was not bad.
Watts per
So
kilogram?
just on 4.01
No,
or
that's pretty good.
4.1 or something like
That's
that.
pretty
So
good.
yeah, I was pretty happy with it, to be honest, considering the literally being not able to ride for a week in Poland before. But yeah, mate, an FTP test is a journey. Hey, like 20 minutes, you look at it, and it's almost like a race where people say immediately after you finish your race, you can't wait to do the next one. That FTP test was in my head all day, going, shit, I got to do this fucking FTP test. And you started out, you got 20-minute effort, and you're like, okay, let's just set a pace. And it says on Zwift, it's like, pick a pace you can hold for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And every time it's like, I've made a huge error
Yeah,
here
yeah,
because I think I
totally.
went out at like 380 watts or something. And I'm like, well, it feels easy. I
Yeah,
guess
yeah.
this is where I'm at
Yeah,
today.
exactly.
And then it shows the average as the ride's going. It's just dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. And your effort's getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. Yeah,
It's a strange thing because, like you say, you start and you think, "Oh, I can actually hold this. Oh, this is good." And then within a couple of minutes, you're like, "Oh, it's getting a little bit worse." And by the end, you're clinging on for dear life to try and keep it over 300 watts.
Ooh. I always imagine, Arrested Development. Oh, I can hold this. He couldn't. Like, this is like, and I know I should. I know I shouldn't do it. Like, I have coached athletes for nearly a decade. I always say, don't go out too hard, and I get on it. I'm like, don't go out too hard. I don't think I've gone out too hard, and then I'm like, yeah, he went out too hard every single time. But again, the best ever result, which is nice. Now I just got to convert it into a race. I was meant to be racing this weekend. I didn't. I'm not because of obviously the travel stuff, but. I saw that they've announced the date for Bahrain 70.3, so I'm looking forward to doing that again because that's a race that I absolutely love. So looking forward to that.
Cool.
Later in the year. But James, let's get into it, mate. This week, the first article, this came up, and I knew that this was happening, but I guess I didn't realize that it was actually now. And that is the news that Nicola Spirig has ended her triathlon career with a win. I got this from Ollie Green at Tri24/7. Said 5-time Olympian Nicola Spirig ended her glittering triathlon career with a victory in Locarno on Sunday. She said it was a very emotional day with fantastic weather, amazing scenery of Locarno, and such a nice atmosphere with everyone cheering and being a part of my last race. Really made the day special. Thank you so much. Happy to finish with a good performance and a win, and really appreciate my husband, Redo Hug, supporting me and my coach, Brett Sutton, coming to Locarno with his whole family, plus good friends enjoying the last triathlon with me. Spirig signs off as a 7-time European champion, a 2-time Olympic medalist, including a gold at London, and with over 20 world triathlon titles to her name. Earlier this year, she broke the 8-hour barrier in a full-distance triathlon at the Sub-8 project. Although her triathlon journey is complete, Spirig has one more race on her agenda, the something half marathon in Zurich later this month. I'm not even going to try to read that word because I will offend our Swiss listeners. But yeah, I knew she was retiring. I just didn't realize it was now. So an incredible athlete wrapping up her career.
Yeah, and what a way to go out with a win as well. It's a nice way to finish. She certainly had a stellar career, hasn't she, with some amazing results and been part of some tremendous things as well, like the Sub-8 only earlier this year to get to the last phase of your career, the last year of your career where you're planning to retire, and to be able to be part of something like Sub-8 shows the sort of quality that she maintained right until the very end, doesn't it? Especially finishing with a win. She leaves triathlon in a better place than she found it, and I think everything that she's done in her career has added to the growth of triathlon. So yeah, all the best for the future, really.
I was really lucky that when I was in Poland, I got to spend a couple of days with Nicola. She was there as one of our mentors and speakers. And I just having chats with a few things that I thought was really funny was we were talking about, her retiring and the end of her career and why she'd chosen to do it. We were talking about races and she's like, "Oh, I've really enjoyed Noosa." I'm like, "Oh, well, you could always go and do Noosa. Like, last year, go do Noosa." And she's like, "No, I'm done. Like, I'm done with triathlon. I've got my last race coming up and then that's it. I'm finished." And I thought that was funny. The other one I really liked about it, she was talking to me because I don't know if I know you've seen it, but that 2016 Rio race against Gwen Jorgensen, where they basically slow down and start talking to each other. And one of the kids there asked her, they said, what did you say to her in that moment? And she said, "I looked at Gwen and I said, I've already got a gold medal. You don't. You've got to do the work." And I thought, fucking hell, that's very, very cool.
Very
She's
cool,
an incredible athlete, amazing career. And as you said, I think, basically in the, part of her farewell tour to go and do that sub-8 race and really give Kat a run for her money. An athlete who's sort of on that upward trajectory, shows the class of a Nicholas Spirig, and definitely has to be considered one of the greats of the sport, and has, as you said, made a real positive impact on triathlon. So congratulations on an incredible career, Nicholas Spirig. This next one, mate, is a bit of a head scratcher, to be honest. Now, I saw this and I was not sure whether I should put this in, but I thought it gives us the opportunity to have another little jab at somebody who's been convicted for doping. So that's why I chose to do it. And this one comes from Romy von Louise. Oh, mate, you're going to love this one then. Get ready. Romy von Louise Schoenveld from Try Today. A Mexican triathlete has been disqualified after a bizarre violation at Triathlon Guerrero. It would have been about time he would have cleared his name, but David Mendoza did the opposite at Sunday's XL Triathlon in Gerda, wherever that is. After a doping suspension of 3 years, Mendoza decided to make his comeback by taking a very obvious and not too useful shortcut. The athlete finished in the top 10, but was later disqualified. Mendoza didn't feel like sticking to the course after racking his bike in T2 and decided to hop over the fence. Fortunately for his competitors, Mendoza was caught red-handed. In 2018, after the World Triathlon Championship Series in Bermuda, Mendoza was suspended for the use of GM501516, which he initially claimed to have taken through a contaminated vitamin B supplement. Mendoza eventually admitted that he made use of the product, which saw his suspension time being reduced within 6 months. So far, Mendoza hasn't been able to shed a positive light on why he's seen jump in the fence out of transition. Now, Jimbo, to paint you a word picture, you're probably imagining this, fit, lean triathlete gracefully leaping across the barricades like a hurdler or something.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it looks like one of those, maybe slightly older people, hasn't been doing the same ability course that Tim has done, trying to vault themselves over a block where they've got one leg or one knee sort of half over it looks just, what the fuck is this guy doing, mate? I saw, I was like, we have to roast this bloke because he's obviously convicted doper who's tried to lie about it and admitted, no, I did it. And then his first race back, he's caught cheating against. Time for you to fuck off out of the sport.
Yeah, I think it's time for you to fuck off. Initially, I was like, what is GM501516? I've never heard of that as a doping thing. And apparently it is a Carradine. It's a collaboration between various...
that thing?
Yeah, fuck knows. It's something. But was abandoned. It causes cancer. Basically, it's a drug that people don't use anymore because the drug causes cancer to develop rapidly in several organs. So, not ideal. If you're gonna dope,
Probably not that one.
Not that one. I mean, making your.
I love the thought. So. What are the benefits of this, doctor, whoever you are? I'm thinking about doping. What are the benefits is? Oh, well, you probably shave a few minutes off your whatever, or you maybe increase your red blood cells a little bit. What are the side effects? Oh, nothing too serious, just cancer. But
you're going to get probably lung cancer, stomach cancer, kidney cancer,
rapidly growing a number of organs.
Organ cancer.
Oh, wow.
Multiple organ cancer.
I can come top 10th somewhere of rapidly growth of cancer.
I mean, this is is this the absolute distillation of the arsehole triathlon mindset that we often speak of, that sort of
I think it might be.
spending loads and loads of money on a bike for a couple of watts here, or a couple of watts there, and at the very end of that spectrum, you've got guy taking drugs that causes organ cancer, so he can go a little bit faster in a race. And then when he realizes that's not a good idea, he hops a fence. I mean, it's not very subtle, is it? Going over a fence, is it?
Oh mate, I will encourage everybody. I'll try. Maybe I'll try to link the article. It is really not subtle what he's doing.
So
And I think this even in the photo. There's someone. Yeah, when it's in again, it was in the article. I didn't include it. I nearly pasted it into notes so I knew you could see it, but I thought I would probably try to paint a word picture. But yeah, mate, and I think in the photo at the top, there's like a person standing there watching anyway, and they're like, "What the fuck are you doing, mate?" Like, this isn't. It's yeah, I don't get it. But again, time for you maybe to piss off, mate. If you're a convicted doper and now you're literally jumping the fence.
Yeah, the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, developed a test for GW501516 and other related chemicals and added them to the prohibited list in 2009. It's also issued additional warnings to athletes that the drug is not safe in any way. It's just not sensible, is it? Eh? You know, don't put stuff in your body that does bad things just so you can go a little bit faster. It's not the key, guys. Come on.
No.
If you're going to hop a fence, do it where someone can't see.
And again, you caught like it's not even like it's not like one of those photos of Bigfoot either. It is clearly this bloke. I think you can see the name on his kit, like the whole thing. It's just like chef's kiss. Next article, mate, comes from Thomas Land at Tri-24/7. A new name. Haven't seen him before. I'm guessing he's one of the people that they've recruited because I knew that Tri-24/7 were on a big recruitment drive recently. And that says, top of their game, Mark Allen is confident in Blummenfelt and Reef for Kona. In his, Mark Allen does his, I think it's a YouTube series, I'm not sure, but it says, clearly Daniela Reef and Kristian Blummenfelt are on top of the game. This was Mark Allen's main takeaway from the Collins Cup in the most recent episode of his The Road to Kona series on YouTube. There you go. I should have just read before trying to guess what it was. The two defending champions impressed the triathlon legend with the dominant performances last month at the Collins Cup and expects them to keep up the momentum heading into Kona. The six-time Ironman world champion also touched on Alistair Brownlee's last-minute qualification and was careful not to count out the two-time Olympic champion, whose 2:40 marathon split at Ironman Kalmar will have some opponents looking on anxiously. At the Collins Cup, second and third quickest finishers Ashley Gentle and Paula Finlay were significantly adrift behind Reef. However, those two won't be racing Kona this year. Long course challengers Annie Haug and Laura Phillip both raced alongside Reef for Team Europe and Samarin, but their times were around 5 minutes behind the Swiss athlete, albeit in different matchups. Allen notes that Blummenfelt was showing he's on form and firing, with his compatriot Gustav Eden close to 2 minutes behind him in Slovakia. However, the most telling result in the eyes of Allen was the gap to Patrick Langer, with the former Kona winner more than 17 minutes behind after struggling with a COVID-19 infection prior to the race. Lang will be one of the many esteemed athletes heading to Kona with a point to prove. The German athlete will be accompanied by Alistair Brownlee, who is clearly over his injuries after that 7:38 to qualify in Sweden last month. I mean, okay, Captain Obvious.
Yeah,
Mark
I was
Allen,
going to
legend
say
of the sport, but like
he's not saying much that we don't already know.
Going out on a limb, is he?
Yeah, really. Daniela Reef and Kristian Blummenfelt are on top of their game. Oh bloody hell! I can sleep easily tonight. Yeah, of course they are, and these two are going to be two of the favourites and the top of our lists when we're doing our previews for Kona, aren't they? It's not going to be. It's not going to be. It's going to take something huge to happen between now and then for either of those two not to be in our discussion for favourites to win the race. Daniela Reef, I think, in my mind, is nailed on for the win.
Yep, I think so too.
On the men's side, I don't know, if I'm honest. I don't know what it is about Kristian Blummenfelt, but I always find myself not betting against him because I know he's capable of these things, and he's proved me wrong time and time again. But I'm always like, you can't get on the hype train, can you? You can't you can't just because he has been winning everything doesn't mean he's going to win everything.
Literally everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally every single thing.
But I mean, as things stand right now, at this moment in time, I think Alistair Brownlee's going to take it, mate.
There's a few things. I think the Daniela Reef thing, the reason it's so obvious is because firstly, she has been so dominant this year, but she has proven herself in Kona time and time again. She's won that race so many times. anyhow has won it once, and then like I don't even know Laura Phillip. Obviously, clearly not as experienced, regardless whether a Kona or not. I just can't remember off the top of my head if she's been there before. I think Danny's something serious would have to happen. I mean, she did get sick in 2019. Maybe there's always the Kona flu or the Kona bug that goes around. You don't know. But yeah, Kristian, it's almost like, and again, Kristian, I know you listen, mate. I think you're a fucking legend, but it's getting a bit boring. Like I want to see. I'm getting a bit like fucking hell. Can somebody else win something here? And Kristian is, I think, as I've said, you've got to throw out the rule book a little bit, because the whole, well, nobody ever wins on debut. Well, we know that people do win on debut. I think you can't apply that to Kristian, just because these guys are meticulous in their preparation, and they would have factored in the heat like they did in Tokyo. I don't think that's necessarily going to be a thing. I just at some point wonder, like, he has done so much this year, and he has performed at such a high level consistently. When's it gonna start to, like, at some point he has to be human, mate. Like, you know what I mean? He has to be human.
Yeah, it's not like accumulated fatigue is not a thing anymore. We don't live in that we're not living in a world where accumulated fatigue doesn't exist anymore. How is he repeating this over and over again, and then dropping down and doing a World Cup race, and then coming back up and doing long course race? It's there's the laws of science have to kick in at some point, Mr. Blummenfelt, and you've got to have a bad race. And I'm not sure that Kona's going to be there for him this year, but I'd like to be wrong, because I'd like to see him do well. But I've just got a feeling. I've got a little feeling about Alistair Brownlee in me, and I'm not. I'm no like Alistair Brownlee fanboy, as you know, but I just got a feeling about him.
Well, like I spoke with Belinda about, and I actually wasn't sure if we were allowed to say it, because when happened, but Belinda said it, so I guess it's out there now. But when I was in Poland, Ali called Chris and literally spoke to Chris for like 90 minutes about Kona, and I had a lot of conversations with Chris. Even before that, we talk about triathlon. Whenever we're together, all we do is geek out about triathlon. And he said to me that he feels that, and again, I agree, is that Sweden performance showed. If you look at how Alistair Brownlee's always raced, it's always just been like, fucking, let's go off the front. Let's destroy our competition. Let's put as much time into them as possible. Like, let's not beat them. Let's make them question their life choices and try to retire them. And you go to that Sweden race, and it wasn't that. It was I'm going to ride with the pack, and then I'm going to drop a consistent, well-paced run. And I think we saw something similar in that Swansea 70.3 as well. And I feel like something has clicked, because that's what Chris said. Chris said if he could go back to the start of his long course career, he'd love to just shake the young version of himself and say, you just need to win by 1 second. You don't need to win by 10 minutes. You don't need to win by 15 minutes. You need to win by 1 second. Literally, find your number one competitor, sit on their shoulder, and cross the line before them. That's how you build this legacy. He goes, if I hadn't known that, I would have won 10 of them. I mean, getting hyperbole or whatever. I feel like that maybe Alistair Brownlee is shifting. There's again, I don't know, but there might be some shift in his mindset, because we've seen 2 very good performances. We know that he was on track from all the reports of his preparation for sub 7, that he has the fitness, and now he's starting to execute. And he has raced in Kona. He knows the heat's tough for him, and I assume that he's going to prepare for that. I think he's in America, or we know he's racing there next weekend, but he has the best race brain of anyone out there. Like, people who, and I know that triathlon fans have quite a high turnover. So people who are listening to this, like, there's probably some of you who are aware of what he did, but if you can understand what he did to short course racing, he retired Jan Frodeno from short course. Like, he is the reason Jan Frodeno is an Ironman champion now. Like, if you can take that and apply it to this long course stuff, I think he can absolutely do it. And I wonder if we're going to see Alistair Brownlee, hypothetical, or if he does win one and be like, I've done it, fuck you all, I'm out of here. Like, I don't like this shit. I don't want to do it anymore. I don't know, but I have a feeling too that I think it's going to be those 2 in particular. I mean, there's Magnus. I'm super keen to see what Magnus does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gustav, I don't think you can count out either. And then Joe's just come down from altitude. Cam Worth, you never know. Sam Long, if he goes, might have a point. Like, there's so many people who could do it. But to me, the two Olympic champions from the last 3 Olympics, it's kind of like what we wanted to see at sub 7. If we get to see in Kona, that's okay. And I just really think that if you look at how that race in St. George unfolded, or even how sub 7 unfolded, because I think if Alistair Brownlee was up against him at sub 7, he would have beat him quite comfortably, to be honest. I think if Ali was on the back of that bike,
Yeah, I agree. And when it comes
I don't know.
to sub 7, I see Alistair Brownlee coming out of the swim in front of Kristian and building the time with that bike crew that they had that they would have needed. I mean, if you look at the differential on the bike and the way Joe closed the gap and put time into them on the bike, then you look at the difference between Joe and Kristian's finishing times. Alistair Brownlee would have built enough, having come out of the swim in the front and built a lead through the bike. He'd have built enough to hold a fast charging Kristian Blummenfelt off, I think.
And it's the same as St. George, mate. I still think that Braden, like as much as Kristian won, and I think Braden Curry lost it in St. George because he went out way too hard that marathon in St. George and faded so badly at the back end. I think if he had have evenly paced himself and just settled in to run a decent marathon, I think Braden Curry literally would have won St. George. So yeah, like that's the thing. And again, maybe that is that, you talk about the allure, the aura that athletes have about them. Maybe if you're a Braden Curry, you know that Kristian Blummenfelt's running you down. That's why. Like there's value, I guess, in that sort of reputation around him. And I think that's why it is important that we don't just sit here and go, Kristian's going to do it, because I don't want to see him win the race before he shows up. I fucking would love it if Kristian won. I think Kristian is phenomenal for the sport. I'm a huge Kristian fan.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to just be a foregone conclusion, because then it gets a bit like, fuck. That's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid it being a foregone conclusion.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. Agreed. Yeah, and that's where I've always come from. That's where I've always come from. And I'm always saying, God, we can't just sit here and go, Kristian Blummenfelt's racing, so he's going to win it. Because that's annoying. Because we want to see racing, don't we? As fans of the sport, we want to see a tight, contested race. Not that I will be seeing anything that day, because I'll be doing my own race, I think, on the 8th. It's the 8th, isn't it? The men's race.
What are you doing?
I'm doing a run in the.
Is it?
I'm doing a run, a long run.
I'll give you updates, mate.
How's that sound?
I'll tweet you updates.
I'll have my phone on me.
Yeah. Because I keep forgetting it's separate days this year, isn't it? The women are the 6th and the 8th.
Women's
You're right.
the 6th, men's are the 8th, I think. It's coming up close, bro. It won't be long now. It's exactly a month today. There you go.
Fucking hell, there you go. Then we got this PTO thing next week, and Joe's racing Ironman. Anyway, let's move on. I saw that you put this in the doc. I don't have a lot to say about this.
No, I just put the results in.
We had Ironman 70.3 Poznan. It was funny, because Poznan is where I was in Poland hosting the camp. And literally when we got in, we were in the center of Poznan. There's a big M dot. And I was like, what the fuck is it? Like, that's random. And then we went to see, like, even on the way in and out of town, there's like fucking people on trial bikes. Like, shit, there's a lot of triathletes in Poznan. I didn't think it was such a triathlon hotspot. And then I pulled out my phone and said, no, there's a 70.3 next weekend. If I had known that, I probably would have just taken my bike and stayed a couple of extra days and done the race.
You should have done.
Alas. So the winner is the current world record holder for an indoor Ironman. I love the fact that it's still this guy, Robert. I still don't know how to say his name properly either. Robert Wilkowicki. Yep.
Something like that, bro.
And that's the only one I'm going to read. And then the first one in the women's is Didi Diedrichs. So well done to both of the winners, as well as everybody else who participated in Poznan 70.3. Poznan's not a bad place, to be honest, mate. I think I misjudged Poland. I quite liked Poznan. So maybe that's one to add to your list, mate, of potential races in the future. Duck over to Poznan for a sneaky 70.3.
Who knows, bro? Who knows?
It's cheap, man. Poland is like actually crazy cheap.
Is it?
Like really, really cheap. Like shockingly cheap.
I haven't been to Poland for
I got my
years and years.
I think when I left, I charged a few things to my room, and when you charge things to your room, you're always like, "Oh, just worried about it when I check out." Yeah. And they give me the bill. And it's was it whatever zloty it was, and I was like, "Fuck!" It sounds like a lot. Like, oh well, whatever. Life's short. Put the card on, and it gives you the option to convert. It's like it's this many zloty or it's 45 Australian dollars. I'm like, wow, that's actually nothing. And I put a lot of stuff in my room. So
that happened to me when I went to South Africa in 2015. I was spending money and thinking it was costing me loads, but it really wasn't. It was costing me just this side of fuck all.
Compared to America, where you go and you think everything's cheap, and then they bring out the bill and you don't realize that taxes aren't applied to the, they've got I'll have a chicken waffles and it's this much, and then you get like, what the fuck? It's like, oh, taxes, and then tips and all this other bullshit.
Yeah, America's a piss take of a place.
We love you, American listeners. Though. Mate, there's a few races, but there's one we're going to focus on this weekend, and that is Ironman Wales. John Levinson at Tri 24/7 put together this summary, and I've chopped out probably the main bit. Now, this is a a pro men's only race. There's no pro female race at this race. And it says there are a few top tier names heading into Pembrokeshire in good form. We've not seen Joe Skipper in racing action since he stepped in at late notice so impressively to the sub-7 project against Kristian Blummenfelt. That said, he believes he's in the greatest shape after a successful block of altitude training in Font-Romeu and will start with nothing but winning on his mind. Hopefully he'll avoid the puncture and litter and disqualification that impacted his race 3 years ago. In PTO ranking terms at least, Bath-based Frenchman Leon Chevalier could be the race favourite. So impressive when 6th at the Ironman World Championships in St. George, he's also an athlete that relishes and actively seeks out the type of tough course that Tenby offers. Having won Embrunman and Alpe d'Huez long course this year, Embrunman last year, Alpe d'Huez this year, he's proven his abilities on the toughest of terrains consistently. Germany's Boris Stein is consistently one of the strongest riders around and was second at Ironman Lanzarote in 2021, while Andre Vistakar has a course experience who was 4th in 2017 and having recently finished 3rd at Embrunman, presumably a few concerns about the tough terrain. Also, don't be surprised if Andrew Horse-Fulturna ensures that a Welsh athlete is first out of the swim. He has quick enough quality to stick around too, and he's more than just a swimmer. Other Brits at the full distance include Harry Palmer, Elliot Smiles, Reece Barclay, and Finn Arndt. There you go, mate. Ironman Wales.
Yeah,
it's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a tough race. It's a hell of a race. It's always a choppy swim, and then it's a very hilly bike and a very hilly run. So a lot of people I know have done this race, and a lot of people I know are doing this race. And it's a race that, it's one of the. It's always on the toughest Ironman lists in the world. Top 10 Ironmans to do in the world type thing. And it's one of those races. The crowd support is second to none, I think, on the course, and the weather, as you know, because it's over here, can normally be shocking as well, and probably will be. It'll probably be raining sideways and grey and cold, so it's a hell of a thing to accomplish. Joe Skipper for the win, though, isn't it, on the pro men's side? Don't you think?
Again, I've spoken to Joe. I think yesterday I was on the phone with Joe for like an hour and a half. And yeah, for all reports, he's absolutely firing at the moment. Every time I talk to me, he's just like, mate, I did the best training in Font-Romeu. And I'm super excited to see, because I think if you look at Joe's, he's had a really weird year this year. He had did South Africa with COVID, which was fourth? Not a great performance for Joe. And we worked out afterwards that it was COVID. Then went straight in a sub. And then because of that, then he did the Nice race as his Bucks party, which he never, was never actually intended on finishing. We haven't seen Joe have that sort of normal year that we'd see him have because of everything that's happened in the last few years. And I feel like he's got his year back on track now. I think he's actually coming into form at the right time with Kona a month away. I know that his focus is Kona, and we also know that Joe is the sort of athlete that likes to race into form. Like he's not somebody who's going to go into a really long break before a Kona. He wants to do an Ironman. He traditionally seems to always perform better after he's done an Ironman, maybe 3 or 4 weeks out from a big race. We saw that last year when he had those races and then went into that incredible performance in Chattanooga. So I think everything about this gets me really excited. The combination of seeing where his training's at. I mean, people keep forgetting he only lost to Kristian by a few minutes. I saw that documentary that KDX put out about 2 years of preparation for sub 7, and I was like, I wish Joe would like quote tweet and be like, I had a week's notice and he beat me by 3 minutes.
4 days notice. Like, I think
whatever. Joe Skipper is really one of the best athletes in the world, and yeah, I'm very keen to see where he's at. And yeah, like I said, I just like seeing Joe race, so it'll be good to see him back, and we'll get a good idea of where he's at in the lead up to Kona. So,
absolutely, plenty more to come for that man.
On that note, because there was another article that was about Joe, I pulled this out. It's also from Tri 24/7. It was Thomas Land, and it's the plans for this winter for Joe. It said, having committed to Kona after Wells, there's a busy end of season in store for Skipper. The 13th ranked PTO athlete is keen to chase more Ironman victories, saying, I'll probably race either 1 or 2 Ironmans, like either Arizona, Israel, Cozumel, or Western Australia in November and December. On top of that, Skipper is also eyeing a world record this winter, with his sights set on either the 80 or 100 kilometer road running world record. Skipper said, I'm keen to give it a go, where I'd set up my own event and get it streamed and all of that too. He stated that the 80 kilometer record is softer, but the 100 kilometer is the more prestigious record, which could mean the clout the 100 kilometer record holds may be hard to ignore when deciding which distance to shoot for. Skipper does have experience in ultra running, after setting himself the challenge of running 50 kilometers in under 3 hours last Christmas. He completed the challenge, which has given him the confidence that he can beat the record for either the 80 or 100 kilometer mark. The 100 kilometer world record was set this year by legendary Lithuanian Alexander Sorokin, whose mark of 6:05:41 beat the previous record by almost 4 minutes. Skipper will have to average an astonishing 3:38 for 100 kilometers to take the record away, but is more than a worthy challenger. Madness.
I absolutely love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. I think that's brilliant. And he's the kind of bloke that rocks up at a 100-mile TT and takes the record for that. And to go in and do the 100-kilometer world record for running would be amazing. To put that into some context, I did a 56-kilometer ultra last year in 10 hours and 5 minutes. And this guy's doing a 100-kilometer run in 6 hours and 5 minutes. Granted, I had some elevation, but it just goes to show how quickly these guys are going that really are at the top end of things. Running 338 kilometers, 338 per kilometer for 100 kilometers. I mean, 338, that's like faster than I run most of my intervals.
I watched that sub 2 hour, the 1:59 documentary on my way over to Poland a couple of weeks ago on the plane, and they were talking about the fact that these guys run like 250 pace for 42 kilometers, and they, and I know you've the footage where you can jump on the treadmill and see how long you can run the same pace that Eliud Kipchoge had to hold for the 1:59.
I've done that.
And the problem is yeah, I know, that's what I meant. I knew you'd done it. But you watch those guys do it, and they don't look like they're running fast.
No.
It's so deceptive because they've got these bloody long strides, and they just don't look like they're moving that fast. I mean, watching Kristian and Joe run, they don't look like they're running that quick.
No.
And then you go, no, they're fucking moving. Like, they're not fucking about.
It decontextualizes it, doesn't it, sometimes when you're watching it without anything really to measure them against. When I did that treadmill thing at the Eliud Kipchoge speed, weirdly, I found it quite easy for the time I was on there. They'd only let you do, I think it was a couple of minutes or something, but and that's the point, isn't it? It's like an FTP test. The first few minutes of an FTP test feel quite easy, but I found it quite easy. I found it easier than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to instantly be on the ragged edge of what I could hold, but it would soon start to hurt if they'd let me go any further, I think.
Yeah, it's mental. But again, I love that Joe's the sort of guy that's like, yeah, I'll just give it a crack at this. And I think that's what, I loved to see Lionel attempt the 1 hour record that he did. Was that 2020? Again, every year's blurring into one at the moment. But I like to see more triathletes do these sort of challenges because it is just something a little bit different too. And
totally. It shows the wider world the quality of the athlete that the top end triathletes are. Because to be able to step from doing long course triathlon into doing the 100-kilometer run world record, I mean, you're up against some of the best ultra runners in the world in that category, and ultra running's on the grow, isn't it? People are looking for new challenges at the moment, and it's certainly a sector that's growing with the Ironman's recent purchase of the UTMB series, and the UTMB World Series now dictating the qualification for the UTMB event itself. So I think they see an increase in that field, and when a big company is willing to put a lot of money behind something, it's because they're expecting it to grow.
One of my best mates he's the guy that got me in a triathlon. He's a proper ultra runner. Like, he's done UTMB, he's done them all, but he loves it. Like, he does the 100 miles, the 200 miles, all these fucking things, and he's always telling me about it. I'm just like, mate, why? Like, and he's telling me because he's from the UK but he lives in Australia, he'll often go back to Europe and he'll do one or two of them when he's over. And he was telling me about one that he did in the UK, which I think you started in London and basically ran all the way south. And it's not for triathletes, it's not like there's a course. There's not a marked course with barricades, and it's literally, here's your map, here's the start point, here's the finish point.
Good luck.
See you there.
Yeah.
Good luck. Jesus Christ. Just bonkers. Absolutely. And he talks about, he's like, oh, it was a close race. I'm like, oh, like, what? He's like, oh, the guy who beat me was like 2 hours ahead. I'm like, close. Close. He's like, well, to be honest, actually, I took a wrong turn. I'm like, okay, like, how do you take a wrong turn? He's like, well, I was heading south, but I ended up heading north for 10 kilometers. I'm like, how blah. So instead of running 160 miles, you end up running like 160 miles plus 10 kilometers. He's like, yeah. I'm like, fuck.
So
Just
that's
get the fuck out of here.
if 2 hours beating somebody by 2 hours is close. That time you beat me in Bahrain by like 40 minutes. Does that mean that's really, really close?
An hour, wasn't it,
Really,
mate? It was an
really,
hour, I
really
think, actually.
close.
Thank you very much.
Really
It was time, mate. That was
nail
that was
biting. Yeah,
that was a sprint finish,
breathing
basically.
down the back of
Yeah,
your
sprint
neck.
finish.
Yeah.
I felt you there, mate. Even though I could feel you the whole race, going, shit, he's right behind me. I can feel Jimbo coming hard behind to take the
You
victory away
you
from
can
me.
feel
And
Jimbo coming hard behind. Let's not
no,
snip that out of the
no,
podcast.
no. I've realized what I was saying then, and you could hear me stutter and trying to work out on the spot how to avoid that from the sound. Don't nobody cut that out. That was bad. That was bad. But the race was good because you coming. Well, maybe we'll have to have the rematch in December, mate. We'll have to get you back there.
We'll see.
Uh,
We'll see.
we've spoken about very, very long races, and now we're going to go to very, very, very short races, James Bell, because Super League Triathlon is back. We had round one of the Championship Series kickoff in London over the weekend. You put this in the doc. I've watched the whole thing. You've watched bits of it. But if you want to lead this, and then do you want to go through it, or do you want to read it? How do you want to do it? Because I can probably.
I think I'll to give it some structure. I'll read the stages out, and we can discuss. I'll read the stages, boom, 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 and then we can discuss the race as a whole. On the men's side, outright favourite Hayden Wild started his 2022 Super League Triathlon Championship Series campaign in perfect style with a win in London, but not before he was given a massive scare by a gutsy Matt Hauser. And in stage one of the triple mix, swim, bike, run, it all started in controversial circumstances, with an eagle definitely diving in early, but it appeared to be Riddle rather than Hauser. But it wasn't just a 5 second penalty. Hauser had to wait at T1 until the last swimmer had exited. Either way, the Eagles at least took the short shoot and prevented their rivals picking one up on the bike, which had led by Emil Holm. On the run, the biggest guns of all came to the fore, with Yi just outsprinting Wild and Johnny Brownlee. It's triple mix stage 2. Run, bike, swim. Those believing Hauser was out of contention were forced into rapid rethink as he roared back on stage 2. He helped drive a fierce pace on the first run and then the bike, with Max Stapley crashing out. Pivotal to Hauser was the swim, as he took 11 seconds out of his rivals, and it was game on for stage 3. Triple mix stage 3, bike, swim, run, which happens as a pursuit start based on the times accrued beforehand. There was virtually nothing between the Commonwealth Games 1, 2, 3 of Yi, Wild, and Hauser starting the final stage, with daylight back to the rest. But this time, and perhaps because of those earlier efforts, Hauser wasn't able to dominate the swim. Wild was right alongside him throughout in the water and also bossed the inner line. Yi too had kept in touch, but a glitch at T2 dropped him back and would never again contact with the front two, especially as the Rhinos had decided to give their short shoot he won on the stage 1 run to Vasco Vilasa. Taking his own short shoot, Hauser was briefly in the lead, but it didn't last long, as Wild's run prowess took him to a dramatic victory from the battling runner-up. And the standings at the end of the men's triple mix was Hayden Wild in first place with 15 points, Matt Hauser in second place with 14 points, Alex Yee in third place with 13 points, and then a great to see fourth place from Tyler Misterchuk with Johnny Brownlee in fifth. And then the team standings were left with the Scorpions in first place, Sharks in second, Rhinos in third, Eagles in fourth, Cheetahs in fifth. So, Tim Ford, you were I've seen bits of the Super League, but you've seen it all. What did you think of it, mate? You were a bit negative about Super League last week, old boy. How are we feeling about it now?
I was. Nah, mate, I fucking love Super League. I'd forgotten again. I don't know why, but it was phenomenal. I really, really enjoyed watching it. I still think the teams thing's fucking stupid, like properly dumb. I don't get it, but saying that, I do think that at least Chris has learnt from what Tim Donlett did last year, where they're actually treating it like a team event, like not just giving it the short shoots to the first person, giving it to people further back to try to maximize points and things like that. But one of the other things is like that so I don't know if you've seen the false start. There was an Eagle swimmer literally dived off the blocks a second before like a clear penalty, and then they penalized Matt Hauser for it, and then and it wasn't even Matt Hauser, it was Jamie Riddle.
Why
Super League? There always seems to be these.
Why did they penalize? Was that because they were on the same team or something, or was it a mistake?
No, they thought it was it was a mistake. It was an
Oh,
actual mistake. And that's what I mean. Like, there's always just these little errors at Super League. Like, we'll talk about the women's, but I swear to God, they got the timings wrong for the pursuit thing because Taylor Spivey finished with or around Cassandra and Georgia, but then had like seconds before them to start. And you look and you're like, what the fuck is going? It doesn't make sense. So there's always just these little errors. But like, I honestly think that error cost Hauser because he was red hot in that second one, but obviously having to do a lot to sort of make up for it
yeah.
and come back into the race. And in that third leg, when he was, you could tell he was fucked. Like the way Hayden ran him down after that short shoot, it was like me versus Hayden. Like the differential in speed was significant. And I really feel like we could be seeing Hauser do something. And we know how good Matt Hauser is at that super short distance stuff. Whereas we've seen Hayden sort of dabble around a little bit. He's probably much more focused on the WTCS because he is the series leader. And I know that Hayden would love to win. I mean, he'd love to win everything. But I feel like we're going to see Hauser do something special this year. The other thing that was a bit disappointing, just a little bit disappointing, was like we didn't see in that last. I mean, obviously they're going to show the leaders, but that sprint finish between Tyler and Johnny, I wish we saw a bit more of that
Yeah.
because suddenly it was just on, and that was incredible. And I mean, I can't, Tyler Mislachuk, absolute legend athlete. He has had such a rough 12 months, tearing his
Yeah.
Achilles at the Olympics. He's had
24
COVID three
months.
times.
24 months. A rough 24 months, really.
Yeah, it's been hideous for him. And I remember at the start, at the very very start of the race, the Scorpions were out on the left, Tyler, and they all got caught up under the barge, going under the bridge, and you could hear Chris, who's is their team captain. You could hear he was a bit disappointed. He's like, "Fuck, I think my guys are in last." And as they come out of the water, fucking there's Tyler in like fourth out of the water. Like he is such a class athlete. And again, talking with Tyler, he said all year, I'm going to build into this year. Like I need to get that race sharpness back because I just haven't had it. So I think that fourth there, I think we're going to see big things from Tyler. And he's such a legend. I really like to see it. But I mean, Hayden, class. He's such a class athlete. He is. We've said it a lot. We don't. Or I'm probably me more than you, but I don't think that he's got. I don't think in a head to head race he can beat Yi. He did. Yi
Yeah,
was there.
absolutely.
They both had this like.
From what you've said, I mean, I'm super pleased to see Matt Hauser firing because he's a talent, and as a talent I wanted to see achieve great things across his career. So it's great to see him up there in second place. From a Alex Yee Hayden Wild perspective, it is, if this is the only Super League race Alex Yee is doing, which I believe it is, then
It is, yeah,
then
disappointingly.
Hayden can go away with 100% victory against Alex Yee in Super League races this year, and that's going to do his confidence a world of good. Not that his confidence probably needed a boost because he knows he can do it, but more a subconscious boost that I did actually take you on that day. Tyler Mislachuk, mate, I was so happy to see him up there in fourth. What a bloke! He's a good friend of both of ours, and I was just super pleased to see him take that fourth place and, like you say, build into his year, come back to, the sort of form that he had. He's always had this form, but he just seems to had such terrible luck in the last 24 months with illness and injury, and it's just been a ride for the man.
Speaking of the Hayden confidence thing, do you wonder, because Alex has been very vocal about the fact that he's not doing Super League because he's focusing on the World Series. He wants that world title this year. Do you think that for Hayden, again, we know Hayden pretty well, and I could probably just ask him, but I'd like to speculate a little bit. Do you think that's going to be in the back of Hayden's mind a little bit? Do you think that he might be thinking, shit, well, while I'm doing Super League for the next 4 weeks, racing, Alex is away putting in this super high quality training, looking to maximize those performances at the back end of the year? Or because Hayden has done a lot of very good racing this year. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I don't think Super League racing is going to do Hayden's chances any harm. What you want to see is someone pushing him as hard as possible at the Super League races, so that he gets that high intensity, race training. We don't want to see Alex Yee disappear and then Hayden just sort of dominate the rest of the Super League series. I want to see Hauser rise to that challenge of being his competitor and pushing him each race so that the racing is as intense and as fast as it needs to be, so that he can carry that speed into the WTCS and the rest of the year.
One of the things I think that format where they change it, like so swim, bike, run, bike, swim, bike, swim, run. I think that you do see like that first race was a lot closer, the first stage, because it was traditional swim, bike, run. So the swimmers had the bit of a gap, the bikers came through and they ran as a pack. Like it was a sprint finish for the win, but there was, everybody's around there and then it splits up. And I think that is because you see that there are certain athletes who, they basically they train for that, and they are built around that sort of model. And when you mix up the order a little bit, an athlete like a Hayden can really do well because he is so strong. In fact, he's strong across all three at the moment. He had a very good swim at the Com Games, and in that third stage, he was with Hauser the whole way. In fact, sort of didn't allow Hauser to have the line that he wanted. Whereas I wonder if you look at this race coming up this weekend in Munich, which is the Eliminator, the back-to-back non-stop race, if we'll see things change a little bit because it might be a little bit more traditional, or are we just going to see that sort of similar thing where the field just shreds apart? I don't know. I'm curious because that's one of the things I like about Super League is that it isn't always just the same thing, that it does mix up a little bit. I'm curious about that.
So yeah, I think we might. I mean, we're still in the early days of Super League from a sort of sporting perspective. People call triathlon young because it was born in 1979, but Super League was born in 2017, wasn't it? So at the moment, you've still got athletes racing who are predominantly used to swim, bike, run over certain distances and used to that order. Looking at Super League as it develops and as it grows, we might start to see 10, 20, 30 years time, if it's still a thing, if it's still thriving and it's grown to a bigger level, then we might see athletes who are really dialed into the Super League racing and a bit more used to triathlon, not just being swim, bike, run. But look, I can't see past Hayden for this series victory because Alexei's disappearing. If Alexei was staying around for the rest of the series, there'd be a conversation to be had as to which of them was going to take it. But I want to see Hauser really rise up and push Hayden as hard as possible.
I'm going to be different then. I'm going to go Hauser.
You're going to go to Hauser?
Yeah. Again, that's what I think. If we look at this, I think this race this weekend could suit Tyler really well. Because it is that sort of, like I said, it's that more traditional. And Tyler, to me, is an athlete where he does sort of fit that more swim, bike, run model. He's a very balanced athlete. So therefore he sort of is even across the field. Whereas Hayden is very good on the bike, very good on the run, good on the swim. And so when it shifts a little bit, Hayden is able to exploit that strength. Same with Hauser's very good on the very good on the swim and the bike. Like I just feel like sometimes you see that when they mix it up a little bit. Whereas this week, I'm really curious to see how Tyler goes because we always joke that he's a diesel, but also that it is that more traditional thing. And if he can sort of stick with him and last the distance, it'll be cool to see. But I'm gonna pick Hauser for the win this year. Just to, again, I can't be the same as you, and I have a good feel. Again, maybe I'm getting a little bit patriotic, but I feel like Hauser's on the precipice of a. He's gonna, I think he could do something really special this.
And
this
I
season, so
I wouldn't be unhappy to see it because Matt Hauser is a great bloke, and I'd love to see him do well.
All right, mate, let's talk about the women.
On the women's side of the Super League Triathlon, London 2022, Cassandra Beaugrand made it 3 big wins in the UK this year as she powered to a dramatic victory in the opening Super League Triathlon Championship Series in London. Triple Mitch Stage 1, swim, bike, run. The Scorpions were all over the first stage as they mopped up 3 short shoots on offer. Beaugrand took the first of them in the swim, and she led from teammates Emma Jeffcoat, Taylor Brown, and Eagles' Sian Rainsley right in the mix too. But Rainsley was an unlucky casualty early on the bike after being right on the tail of the leaders. But the Scorpions' dominance continued as Georgia Taylor Brown produced a superb T2 to pip Janine Lair and the rest of the group of 10 from the bike. And while no team could win more than 1 short shoot, they were denying the rest. There was no surprise to see Taylor Brown still in front after the run to take the opening stage ahead of Beaugrand and Spivey. Triple mix stage 2, run, bike, swim. The second stage saw an eye-catching performance from Spivey, who powered through late to land the spoils. It had begun with a slightly chaotic run start with several athletes at the wrong end of the start line. There were plenty of time penalties and racing mishaps too, with Non-Stanford among them as she was forced out by a broken catch on her helmet. And Scorpions manager Chris McCormack decided to hand their short shoot to Kathia Shah rather than Beaugrand or Taylor Brown. Triple mix stage 3, bike, swim, run, with a pursuit start based on the times accrued previously. Spivey had earned the right to start first on the bike and briefly held off the rest before it turned into a 4-person group, with Sophie Caldwell, Beaugrand and Taylor Brown having it between them. Once again, a tremendous transition from Spivey saw her lead into the water and she was still in the front starting the run. But while Beaugrand was closing and the catch came on lap 2, with Spivey staying on well for an excellent second, with GTB in third to round off a stunning day for the Scorpions. The results were first place Cassandra Bergrand, second place Taylor Spivey, Georgia Taylor Brown in third, Sophie Calderon in fourth, with Beth Potter in fifth. And the team standings after the first weekend of Super League racing, with the Scorpions in first place, Sharks in second, Runners in third, Eagles in fourth, and the Cheetahs in fifth. And just to say, before Tim gives his comments, both of these summaries were taken from Try 24/7 by Jonathan Turner. I just had realised I hadn't referenced them through either, so add that in. Mr. Ford, what did you think of the women's race?
Mate, I think the women's race was absolute fire. Few things I noticed that they I think that they need to maybe reevaluate their 90-second elimination rule, because I think it was in race 2. Was it Georgia Taylor, or was it literally as they were coming through transition? I think Emma Jeffcoat had just got sent off, and I was like, they shouldn't have sent her off. They should have just said, "No, sorry." If the lap's not big enough to go 90 seconds, maybe they really need to reevaluate it. But it was exceptional racing, mate. Like, I talk about the team thing. Like, I thought it was very clever of Chris to not give either Bogran or GTB the short shoot more rack up points further down the field. But to me, Taylor Spivey, mate, looked incredible. She looked focused. I mean, I think Taylor Spivey is an absolutely incredible athlete, but she was looking like a woman possessed out there. And there's a point there I thought she might actually hold on for it. But Cassandra Beaugrand is an athlete that I have spoken a lot. I think we've both spoken a lot about her potential and how good she is when she's on. And we saw that on the weekend. She is a class athlete, and she's very good at this short distance stuff. I still remember that sprint finish she had with Katie Zafiris back in 2019. She is. I think Cassandra Beaugrand is probably the best in the women's field at this distance. And I think in 2019, if she had have raced the whole thing, she probably would have got the title over Katie. But GTB, mate, it was great. Again, it was very, very good racing. I think the women's race seemed to have a bit more strategy in play. You could see that. But Beth Potter, I was surprised. I thought she'd probably be a bit further up, but you could see the run difference. Like, we all talk about Beth Potter's running, but Cassandra dropped it like a bad habit, mate.
Really?
Like, Cassandra is really that good. So, but yeah, I love Super League, mate. One thing I did notice about it, which again, nitpicking, but that's what I do, is, if you watch like let's say the Tour de France, so you get the stage wins, but then they'll also give, who's got the yellow jersey. I thought that it was weird that watching the broadcast that they didn't do anything about the team that was leading. Like, they didn't even at the end of the broadcast tell you how many points the teams had. And I thought, for this thing that they're leaning into, it almost seemed like maybe Super League don't give a fuck about the teams either.
Do they still do the swim leaders jersey, run leaders jersey, bike leaders jersey?
Well, I don't know, actually.
They might do as of next weekend.
Thing, maybe not this. Maybe I hope they do, because I really liked that part of it. I still think some of the kits are fucking hideous. That Cheetahs kit is ugly. Like, it's fucking hideous, actually. But mate, it's great to have Super League back. Like, I really enjoy this form of racing, and I'm like very excited for this weekend's race, as you probably heard earlier. But Cassandra Beaugrand, class. All the women were class.
And this weekend we're going into the Enduro, which is considered the most brutal format, which basically is just swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run, swim, bike, run with no break, eh?
Exactly.
Sounds
which we saw.
Much.
Now, last year in Munich, it was different. Last year in Munich, they did the bike time trial, didn't they? First,
they did. Yeah.
Remember, they all did a lap on the bike, and
they stitched Hayden.
We had that incredible. Yeah, they stitched Hayden up, and they had that finish where Johnny and Vince were running, and Vince took the short shoot, and we were sort of deprived of a sprint finish. I think we discussed it, but it's why they've changed the short shoot this year. You have to take it on the first lap of the run, so to sort of avoid that thing from happening. But
it's a good idea.
No Alex Yee will be a bit. Yeah, we'll see, mate. What's next?
Welcome to the down low on the PTO, mate. We got a sort of double header on this one, really, but it's a quick note from 220 Triathlon's Rob Slade that Alistair Brownlee is to race the PTO US Open. The men's start list for the PTO US Open has been revealed, and it's shaping up to be a race you won't want to miss. Alistair Brownlee will be continuing his comeback from injury this month as he prepares to take the start line at the PTO US Open. Brownlee will be hoping to continue his return to form after the first half of the Brit season was seemingly one to forget. He missed the Ironman World Championships in St George through illness and then had to pull out of his sub-7 attempt with hip injury. The double Olympic gold medalist returned to action at the PTO Canadian Open at the end of July and looked in fine fettle, only for stomach issues on the run to derail his chances. Brownlee eventually crossed the line in 24th. It's been better news since then, however. He took the tape at the inaugural Ironman 70.3 Swansea event in early August and followed that up with a win in Sweden at Ironman Kalmar. In doing so, he took one of the last remaining qualification slots for the Ironman World Championships in October and set the fastest Ironman time ever by a British athlete with a blistering 7:38.48. After Dallas, Brownlee's attention is expected to turn to Kona. So, before we, I've got a little bit on the actual lineup. But before we go into that, what do you think of Alistair Brownlee's chance at the PTO US Open, Mr. Ford?
I'm curious to see how he prioritizes it, knowing that he is laser focused on Kona. Like I look at that PTO start list in Dallas, and yeah, it's red hot. But I just feel like the proximity to Kona and I would be curious to see how people can excel at that distance when they are all racing Kona in like 3 or 4 weeks. And again, looking at the highlighted names, you've got Ali, you've got Magnus, you've got Daniel, you've got all these guys that are going to Kona. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Sam Long, I'm interested to see, but I mean, Alistair Brownlee, if he maintains his form and, as I said, doesn't have the same blowout that he had in Edmonton, it should sort of be a pretty safe win for me, to be honest, I think. But again, I just don't know where his head's. I want him to wrap himself in cotton wool, and I want him to get to Kona fully fit, ready to fire, without any little niggles, without any little stress reactions, without any little stomach bugs or whatever. Like, just take care of yourself, Alistair Brownlee. Get to Kona, mate.
So yeah, I mean, on the men's side,
I don't know, like,
carry on. Sorry, I interrupted you. You had a final thought.
I'm still. These PTO Opens are confusing me a little bit this year. Like we saw, I think we touched on it last week, Joe talking about, and I listened to Joe's podcast this week, and he's talking about the expense of Kona and how it's not fair that most of the sports, the pro athletes aren't expected to lay out so much money to go and compete in an event where they're probably going to lose money. And I kind of wish that this was a 200K race that they put on big prize. And I wish they put it on like a week before or the week of Kona, and we actually started to see some of the pro athletes go, I am going to opt for this over Kona this year. Like, if you imagine if this race was 200K, so it was closer to an Ironman, or let's say it's a 200K race, so long distance, has the same prize purse, and is the week before Kona. I would be very curious then to see what the field is like. Like, I would like to start to see which athletes are going, I'm going to take the sure thing and take the better prize money, rather than forking out $20,000 to go to Kona and I might win 10. I kind of like, yeah, I wish we'd see that. I'd like to see the PTO actually sort of, slap Ironman in the face with a glove and say, we challenge you to a duel, guns at sunup.
But do you think the athletes care more about racing Kona than Ironman care about the athletes racing Kona? I think they might shrug their shoulders and go, all right, we won't have that many pros.
Yeah, I know. I think they would definitely do that. But I guess I kind of want to see at some point if I guess, I don't know. I feel like it's just a bit, I don't know. Are they really? I don't know. I guess I don't know what I'm saying, to be honest. I just feel like at some point we are going to have to see athletes stop trying to do it all. And because I look at, how can you peak for this and Kona? Like, which athletes in that field are literally, like, how many athletes is this their A race for? Like, who is going there to excel at this race, knowing they have Kona? And when there's that much money on the line, it kind of pisses me off a little bit, because it's like, well, no, if you're gonna be paid this much money for it, give it the attention it deserves, rather than, this is a step on my way to Kona. Like,
I agree with you.
I think if that's the case, if they're not going to, like, I think the prize money's too big, mate. I still think that they're paying too much. They need to. I just don't. Like, it feels like it's, we're just, when it's making money, it's able to be profitable.
That's them here money. It's just get them here money, get them here money. And do you think that people are lining up going, well, I better just go and do that race? There's loads of money in it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, because what always throws me is that this is an athlete-owned organization. So you'd think that once the organization makes money, then the athletes can make more. Like, we always talk about the positives of them, but which I think is fantastic. But now we're beyond that. Now they're just paying lots of money. Like, you look at how much money Gustav Ines made from the PTO. It's a lot of money. Is the ROI there? Is the return on that investment there? And like I said, this race so close to Kona. I mean, we saw the athletes put out hey, if you want to sign up, here's a 30% discount code, which to me tells me that age group race ain't filling up.
Yeah.
That they're desperate to get entries. Like, I don't know, mate. I feel like they're sort of having a foot in each in each sort of camp at the moment. At some point, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like I want to see that PTO Daytona race we saw in 2020 when it was the only race that was on that year. Really, it was a championship race. That felt like it was worth it because everyone was there wanting to. This was it. Had prestige. It was the only big performance. It felt like an event. This to me really just does. It just feels like another race, but they've got a pretty good field and they're paying really deep and not just deep but really high. I don't know. It just doesn't get me. I'm back being a bit negative again, but I don't know.
Timmy Negative is back. Well, on the men's side, the race features PTO World number 3 Magnus Ditlev, number 4 Lionel Sanders, number 5 Alistair Brownie, number 6 Daniel Beckergaard, and number 7 Florian Anger. In total, the field of the PTO Men Tours race of the season features 22 of the top 30 in the PTO World Rankings and covers 12 different countries, including 7 athletes from the USA, led by PTO World athlete number 11 Sam Long. On the women's side, a strong roster of American female athletes is led by PTO World number 7 Taylor Knibb, 15 Jackie Herring, 18 Jocelyn McCauley, 23 Sophie Watts, 37 Daniela Lewis, and 56 Leslie Smith. They'll be up against a lineup of international athletes including Ashley Gentle, Paula Finley, Team European Collins Cup winner Holly Lawrence, and a resurgent Lucy Charles Barkley, who has bounced back from injury by winning the recent World Triathlon Long Distance Championships in Samara in Slovakia. The elite female feed features 13 of the world's top 25 PTO world ranked female triathletes. So they're getting the names in there, they're getting the numbers in there, but
it's half. It's 13 of the top 25. So that means there's 12 who aren't there. But this is it's got is the prize money what's drawing? Like what is the disconnect here? Because if this is an athlete-owned organization where the success of it goes to the athletes and they're offering such big money, why is it only 13 of the 25? Shouldn't it be the 25?
Yeah, you'd think so.
Like, where's the buy-in? That's what at some point, it's almost like if we get, the PTO is doing so much for these athletes. Fucking, you have to support our events then.
I'm interested.
We shouldn't have to pay you so deep.
I want to know whether the broadcasts are going to keep trying to go up. Because what are they trying to do at the moment? Are they trying?
It wasn't good.
No, are they trying to support the athletes, or are they trying to create something that is a broadcast entity that fans will and an audience will want to watch? If they're trying to do that, then yeah, they should have. I know what you're saying, and I get it. There's sort of there's a disconnect between, are you just paying lots of money for a few of these athletes to turn up at these races, and what for if they're not there to go at their very best because Kona's just down the road? Where is that the jeopardy for the audience? I probably won't watch it.
I still think the Collins Cup, mate, they get paid an appearance fee. Like, fuck off. Prize money. Like, incentivize it's because they've got the allure of performing for their. Fuck off. Do you think like a person? I don't know. Like, I don't want to name, but like, do you think they care about Team International? Like, that's not going to force them to go. They're thinking about the. I don't know, man. I don't know. I have to say one thing that did get me a bit more excited about this race. I'm really keen to see Taylor Knibb come back from her, whatever happened to her. Flora Duffy's in there again, mate. And again, I think that Flora Duffy,
that would be cool.
Once she gets it, she's going to be very good at the middle distance. And this is that slightly shorter one. I'm keen to see what Flora does. But Ash Gentle, Paula Finlay, great names. And Lucy Charles Barkley, I think we're going to see some fireworks in that women's race. And again, that's the thing, mate. You look at the women's race, a lot of those big names aren't racing Kona. Taylor Knibb's not racing Kona. Ashley Gentle's not racing Kona. Paula Finlay's not racing Kona. Lucy Charles probably not racing Kona. Holly Lawrence, I don't think is racing Kona. That's better to me. Whereas all those men, Magnus Kona, Lionel Kona, Ali Kona, Daniel Kona, Florian Kona.
Yeah.
That's the disconnect that I have, is at least the women's race seems to have those 70.3 stars there to race. And that gets me a bit more interested. I'm definitely more interested in the women's race in Dallas than I am in the men's race.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, mate, we're getting to the end of the show. So all that's left to say is, guys, if you enjoy this podcast, you can head to mxendurance.com/podcast where you can sign up for our podcast membership. We've touched on it previously, but we have a suite of changes coming to MX by the end of this year and early next year. We are going to be doing a whole bunch of goodie stuff. And if you want to find out about it, get on board early, be the first to know, support the podcast, keep us two boys doing this podcast, all that stuff. mxendurance.com/podcast. We really appreciate the support. Price is as little as $3.40 a month. If you go on an annual plan, $49 a year, or $10 a month gets you partner discounts. We just put on a new partner, a Pillar Performance, who've come on. MX members get 20% off. I've been using the stuff. It's bloody good shit. As well as many, many, many more. mxendurance.com/podcast. James, if they want to find out other things, what do they need to do?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm at bale.james85 on Instagram, or you can follow Tim at tford14 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app. That's really easy and helps us out a lot. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow. If you've got any suggestions, comments, or criticisms, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
I did see we got a question this week, and I can't remember off the top of my head. I should have prepared. It was something about, what was it? Anyway, yeah, if you send them through, I do see them. I just haven't had a chance to get to this week, but we'll try to bring it up next week. Jimbo, a pleasure. You are interviewing somebody next week, which should be good. But until next week, have a good one, buddy.
Always a pleasure. Take care.